Just sort of washed on the back step, and now I'm going to have a shave. So this is the before. And after. It's all gone. I feel 100,000 times better now. So day 9, and we saw this sundog, from sea dog to sundog. Quite incredible. Land ho! And there it was, the mysterious land of the long white cloud, New Zealand.
Aotearoa.
We've been doing a sail training day. We've got about 2 weeks till we leave. Not quite, and so we're out. So far we've put up staysail, we've done heave twos, we've got spinnaker out, goose wing with the spinnaker, and oh yeah, we've reefed the main and unreefed the main. It was a lot of fun today. Nobody's got hurt, we didn't lose anything overboard, we haven't broken anything. That's it. Was there any swearing? I don't think there was. I did a Chinese jibe and I still didn't swear. Chris, what are we up to today?
Well, we're going out to put the storm sails up and down.
So this morning we've just gone through what, Emma?
All 4 pumps.
What sort of pumps?
Pumps that take the water out of the bilge so you don't sink.
More commonly known as...
Bilge pumps?
Yeah! Here we are, we've got a nice gale. We'd already pulled the trysail up and back down, and now we get the gale. We've got staysail and our old Yankee up. And we're doing about 5 or 6.
This wind is jumping around.
all-
You get used to leaning one way. Like, so you're going to Nelson and then across the strait is Wellington. And along that coast are the steep hills. And they say they've bred the sheep to have short legs on one side and long on the other, so they can stand on it.
Uh-huh.
La da 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 da. La da 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 da. Turn around and see yourself upon the bright horizon. Know the day is coming soon and your sun will be rising. Feel the love from in your heart each day as you breathe. Set your strength to shine out loud.
This is a tunnel berth. So these are fantastic at sea. We didn't have those doors there because this is padded on both sides, you can see. So this was Emma's berth and I had it when she was on watch. And if the boat rolls over a long way, you can't fall very far. There's not very far to go, so you're not going to do much injury. And then there's a second one of these down in here. This was Chris's berth.
With a smile, know your brother's heart would want the same.
Sir Christopher shot this little bit of footage on his phone when he was bunkered down in some boisterous conditions at sea.
Feel your spirit flying high when you set your mind free. It's what will be, what will be, what will be. That is what will be. That is what will be, what will be, what will be.
I had this berth, which is a little less safe, but got the engine here, and I had what we call a lee cloth. Lee cloth ties up from under here, tied up to here and up to here. So it's basically a strong piece of sailcloth, so I'm sort of tucked into there, so I can't fall very far either. And then occasionally at sea I'd lay up here in the daytimes if it was not too too bumpy, like in a less crazy motion. This is our normal bed, and sometimes I could lay in there with putting sails and cushions around me. That's how we sleep at sea.
This is day 10 coming to an end. Sunday 28th of January, and we're within sight of the South Island and a little bit of the North Island up to our northwest. We've been busy cleaning up the boat and getting ready for quarantine and stuff. People like me need to get cleaned up, and it'll be funny being on stable land after all of this rocking and rolling. But let's have a look at the land. There's the top of the South Island, the west coast, Heafy, Karamea coast, and the Murchison range. Just sort of, it's a bit hazy, unfortunately, but it stretches way down into the distance, and if it was clear, I reckon we'd see snowy peaks like the Southern Alps. And the land ends and Cape Farewell, and then Farewell Spit is further quite a long 20 miles of sandbar to get past to get into Tasman Bay, Golden Bay, down to Nelson. And up there is the North Island, and you really have to use your eyes creatively to imagine where the land is, but you can see it a little bit as a darker outline under the lowest clouds. And of course, clouds over the top of the land being Aotearoa, land of long white cloud. So, expect to be in calling up the Customs and Quarantine Service tomorrow morning at about 6:30 a.m. New Zealand time. So I'll be on watch. So are we there yet, Captain?
Nearly. We're just outside the port. We're waiting for information on the tides at the customs jetty, which only has a very low 1.4 at low mean tide, which is not enough for us. And it's just been low mean tide at about 6:30, about half an hour ago, 6:45. Right. So we're half an hour back into the rising tide. By the time we get there, it'll be an hour, so maybe just will fit. Presuming it was, depending how low the tide is compared to what's on the low mean tide, I don't know. I'm not a local, so right. I don't have a measuring hole in front of me, I can't tell. I'm waiting for them to come back on radio. Then we'll know if we can go, but we can see the land.
Turn around and see yourself upon the bright horizon. Know the day is coming soon and your sun will be rising. Feel the love from in your heart each day as you breathe. Set your strength to shine out loud, and that is what you see. It's what will be, what will be.
Emma, what's happening?
We are about to clear into Nelson. Very exciting.
Here we are. Here's Nelson Port.
We're going to touch the land. We're going to touch it.
We're going to be a bit wobbly,
gently.
aren't we?
Gently?
Well, we'll touch a jetty.
Yeah,
or
jetty.
Not really land, it's a bunch of bits of wood stuck together. Concrete.
Yeah, and then we'll stagger out. So there's Nelson Port in there, and we've radioed in and been directed to the customs wharf. So there's a customs jetty, and we have to wait for a couple of hours for the big ship to leave, and also for the tide to come in, because it's quite shallow in the customs jetty. One of the customs people that we're in touch with had to go over Picton to clear in a cruise boat, so we're dealing with a new person now, but we'll see how it goes.
So finally we got into Nelson, tied up at the customs wharf, got our customs clearance and our biosecurity clearance, and the lovely biosecurity guy happened to play guitar. He took an interest in what was in my case, so we got it out. He had a little play. It was a great welcome to New Zealand.
Hold your head up high and greet the sky with a smile. You know your brother's heart would want the same and play your part. Watch the children.
Emma, we're finally tied up at the Marina berth in Nelson. We've done all the customs, all the...
Set your mind free. It's what will be, what will be, what will be. That is what will be. That is what will be, what will be, what will be. That is what will be.
Okay, Emma.
Samuel.
So, what are your takes on the crossing of the Tasman Sea from Hobart to Nelson?
Well, leading up to the crossing, as you know, I was quite, I don't know if fearful is quite the right word, but I certainly had my reservations. And I was really kind of oscillating between flying, thinking, oh, I've got nothing to prove, just fly, and having sort of 10 days poking around here and then meeting you as you came in, knowing you'd probably be able to get another crew member. But then I knew I would look back and sort of regret not being up for the challenge and adventure. So I think in the end that's what pushed me, that I wanted to just test myself. I was up for the adventure, and in my mind I was going through all the things that I would find a little bit daunting, least of which being big seas and getting thrown around, sort of being stuck in a confined space and not being able to exercise for sort of 10 days and having had seasickness before. I know how debilitating it can be, and not only do you feel horrible, but you're also useless, and you don't want to be on a crossing and be one crew member down because they're sick. So I did my research, spoke to quite a few people, and essentially the advice was to begin the seasick regime the night before, so that's what I did. By the time we set off, I was pretty medicated, and I guess the proof was in the pudding. As soon as we got out of Storm Bay, called that for a very good reason, got very rolly. The swell was kind of hitting us from the side, so we sort of had that washing machine thing happening. Poor old Chris was first to go, and he was throwing up over one side, and then Sam was next. I just had a moment where I was on the helm thinking, wow, okay, it works. So I definitely recommend doing that. And then I sort of kept up that regime, I think, for the next 6 or 7 days, and felt pretty good most of the time. You know, got a bit queasy, obviously, when you go down inside or you're in the galley and you've got your head down, but certainly being seasick was not the thing I had to worry about like I thought I might have to. So that was the good news about the crossing.
What were your highlights during that time? Obviously we were, 9.5 days at sea essentially.
Yeah.
Didn't see another soul.
In a world of 8 billion people, amazing really to not see even any evidence of humanity, not a plane, not a ship, like nothing, just the three of us on a little boat sort of bobbing along in the middle of the Tasman. But I think what I really liked about the crossing that I probably wouldn't have been able to appreciate until I did it was that time sort of takes on its own dimension. You know, I think in modern society we're so used to being dictated to by time, and for me being a teacher, you know, timetable, I'm told when to turn up, when to leave, when I can eat, when I can go to the toilet, that suddenly on this crossing we're in charge of time. And really we sort of just worked it all around the 4-hour watches, which I think worked really well, and just learning to listen to your body and what you need when you're not on watch. And when we weren't on watch, we were napping, we were eating a little bit differently, and it was just really interesting to see how we kind of eased into that 9.5 days and managing time in a way that perhaps was quite different from what we would normally be doing.
Because I remember one of your concerns about doing the crossing was that you'd be cooped up on the boat and you wouldn't be able to get your daily exercise. You had this sort of, oh my God, I'm going to be stuck in a boat. I'm not going to be able to move. I'll get cabin fever. And I'm sort of, having done a few crossings, I'm thinking, my memory is it's different.
Yeah.
So how did you find that?
Yeah, it was different. Like, I thought I'd be really antsy, but I don't think I quite imagined that my body would be feeling quite different. Doing 4-hour watches, you're not sleeping as well, so you kind of just get into a different zone, really. So you're not really thinking about worrying about missing out on your exercise, because every sort of part of you is trying to figure out how to keep your balance, you know, and that's pretty challenging. Or you're sleeping, or you're kind of thinking about what to eat. So I guess not getting any exercise becomes the last thing you're sort of worried about, really. And you know that once you get from A to B safely, I don't know if you can sort of pan to where we are now, but in a way this is why we do what we do, because you find yourself in beautiful places like this. And as we're doing this interview, we've been here a couple of days and we've sort of gone onto shore, and we've had 2 pretty big walks. I think yesterday was in excess of 15k. I think the day before was 10 plus, and we're swimming. And so I think so much of cruising, which I'm beginning to appreciate, is just about slowing down, just enjoying life, being in the moment, probably using your body more as nature designed, really.
So in terms of having got here, obviously there's that, was it a sense of relief, or what was the feeling during that time?
Before we reached Nelson, I had a really nice watch where I had like beautiful wind, we had a lovely reach, the sea was behind me, so we literally did have fair winds and following seas. I had this, we were sort of surfing off the waves, and it felt quite euphoric in some ways. And I think given that, you know, I had moments of seriously contemplating to fly, to kind of avoid that Tasman crossing, I did have a moment where I felt very sort of proud of my achievement, that I'd sort of had the courage to do what I did, and also very proud of you that you captained us here in a really, you know, competent way. You kept me cool most of the time. Chris was lovely to be on a boat with, because he was we called him Sir Christopher because of his calm, collected, considered sort of manner. And so I think together we worked really well, and we had this sort of lovely team environment where we got through some pretty challenging moments, and we sort of came out the other side feeling sort of stronger and better for it. And as corny as it sounds, and maybe it's my English teacher coming through, but that sort of metaphor that you really do enjoy the good times more when you sort of have that juxtaposition of the hard stuff that's come before it. So I guess those challenging moments made getting to New Zealand even sweeter, where we could all be really proud of our achievements.
Well, thank you for that, Emma. I think we're going to move on to moving the boat from where we are, and that's gone down in the memoirs.
You didn't want my lowlights then? Maybe
your lowlights? Oh, we forgot about the lowlights. No. Let's go back to lowlights.
Well, there weren't really any lowlights. I guess there was just that one night where, and I guess in hindsight it's quite funny, where, you know, on my watch, I felt like we were on this sort of, I was on this demented roller coaster. Like I was sort of grabbing hold of this and looking out the back, and there was this incredible sense of being on this roller coaster as Norla sort of rose up on these big swirls and came down. And I think on my watch the wind got to, the highest I saw was 47 knots. So, you know, it was pretty wild, because the swirls were coming from different directions. It started to sort of make these mountains, and so if I started to overthink it, you do feel very vulnerable in amongst all of that kind of turbulence. But again, it's trusting the boat, knowing she was designed to do that. But then when I went to bed, I temporarily thought that it had started to ease, and I fell asleep, and then I woke up because the boat was rocking crazily, and as I was awake, this big wave just the side of the boat. And I remember crawling out of my tunnel berth, and I still had my sleeping bag on the edge of, still my feet were in the sleeping bag, and it got really wet as the water sort of came into the cabin there. And then my first thought was worry. I thought you'd been washed over. and he yelled out, "Sam, are you okay?" And you're like, yeah, I'm fine. And I think I did utter the words, "I'm terrified," because I did get into my head a little bit much, and I thought, this is what happens. Boat gets swamped with water, and you're in the middle of these crazy seas, and it's really hard to navigate your way out of it. But as it turned out, it was all fine. I lived to tell the story.
And what did I say to you at that time when you said I'm terrified? What did I say back?
I think you were just like, it's okay, I've got it under control, I know what I'm doing, and I'm onto it, and trust the boat, and it's okay. And
go to bed?
you were really calm, and I didn't go to bed. I actually just went down there into the galley, and I was sort of holding onto the grab rails, looking out the window at the massive waves.
So you ignored Captain's orders and stood and looked out the window.
It was a bit hard to go to bed because I was like, everything was wet, I was damp, I was a bit fearful. It was night, and everything always seems worse at night. So then I curled up in the fetal position in the front of the boat for a bit. And then, just gradually it all eased, and we were able to sort of laugh about it the next day. I think we just did an interview on how I felt when we had that one night of really high seas and high winds, and I did utter the phrase, "I'm terrified." So what was your take on that?
We knew this weather stream was coming. It was a strong northerly. Our fantastic weather guy, Ken Batt in Tasmania, sort of said, this is coming, and he'd put a pretty accurate spot on where it was going to build up. We'd made northing from Hobart to get as far up above our destination, so I knew that we could run off. The winds were going to be up into the 40s. Emma's watch, she got 40s, 47s, whatever, but we were just running away with it with our tiny little staysail, which is a 10-metre square sail. So it's not a very big amount of power. So she was controlled, we had steerage all the time, and we're just surfing off the waves, making really high speeds. Like from time to time you see 12 knots on the speed, which is like double our hull speed for this boat. So when I came on watch, it was kind of still doing that. We still had upper 30s. Every now and again I'd see a 46 knot. But it was very controlled, very comfortable and safe. But the worst thing that everybody says about this, and I'd read about this quite a lot, I hadn't actually had it happen to me yet in my adventures across the oceans. When the wind does back off, when it dies, all of a sudden we had confused seas. It's like a washing machine or something. There's water going this way, that way, this way, that way, and all these waves kind of shape, and then they combine with different swells coming through. So when that first happened, when Emma woke up and we got hit by a wave, I was on watch. I was playing with my sleeve, trying to get the waterproofing to seal up, and had my head down and had the autopilot on. The autopilot suddenly had no steerage, so she went slightly off course, and that's when a wave hit us, and I went, whoa, what's going on? Suddenly we were beamed to some of the seas, and then I realised how confused it was and looked at the windman and went, oh gosh, it's just dropped like bang. It was a matter of seconds from being 30 something knots to 20 knots. And I went, okay, we got no steerage. Pulled out the jib as quick as I can. Emma pops her head out. I said, it's okay, got under control. Go back to bed, get some rest. I didn't want anyone to be fearful because I knew I know what to do here. It's not an issue. It's just I need to act quick. So I was like, get that headsail out, get the jib out as quick as I can. It's a roller reefing jib, so all I had to do was let the line off, pull it out, get some power, and take over the steering from the autopilot. So I turned the autopilot off, and then I hand steered for the next probably 3 hours. Even that was the end of my watch. I thought I didn't want to hand over to Chris. It was his watch. Not that he's not capable and a capable sailor, but I know this boat like the back of my hand. There's a good 30 years of experience with it, a bit more. So I was able to sort of ride through the turbulence of these seas.
You were lucky too that it was a full moon. Sort of think back on that, what that might have been like if it was pitch black and you couldn't see them.
Would have been a lot harder if there was no visual. But it was, at that stage, it was kind of 2 in the morning Australian time, but we were closer to New Zealand, so it was probably getting more to like 4 in the morning, and the daylight's starting to creep in as well. So had just enough glow to be able to see the waves. I could feel them, and yes, I was basically when Chris came up for his watch, I said, you can go back to bed if you'd like. I'm quite happy, but he sat up here with me and we just chatted and watched the waves, and it was actually fun. I had fun with that moment, and once it was sort of settled enough, I handed over to Chris. And that was it. That was my take on it. Was we're fine. We loved the experience. I'm glad we had it. Thanks for watching. Give us a like.
That is what will be, what will be, what will be. That is what will be. So that is what will be.